this is KB coming to a store near you, and before I say anything else, I think I have to say this from the bottom of my heart. Happy New Year. It does put me on a bit of anxiety though, because it's 2019, which is an odd number, near to 2020, and just behind 2018. Got this mixed up. See how anxious I am? God damn it. Okay. Now I'm not gonna lie, this is one of those videos I've been planning for so long. You have no idea how much of the anticipation I've got, just besides from me procrastinating through my Christmas break, but you know, that doesn't stop me now, does it? So I'll start this video by saying that 2018 for music has been a bit of a revolutionary one for me. I've been listening to more of online streaming services like Spotify and recently YouTube Music without the improvements I think it needs, but all in good time, I think. And with that comes new releases and new chances to listen to music, and that is what has summed up my list for today. Bearing to say so, I'm more of a guy who both listens to like new alternative stuff as well as stuff that you know and love, but it still holds a good place in my heart. So that's what this list today is going to consist of. One of those sorts of, yeah, okay, we've got some good originals here, but we've also got stuff like, you just put it on there because it's that band. But, you know, I assure you that it's down majorly to the album itself, and not just because I'm a fan of the band or anything like that. So, plus there's going to be a few alternatives, so there might be times when you're going, oh yeah, I love that album, I'm going to go listen to it now, and then there's going to be ones like, really, this album? So be prepared for that. This is my own personal list. Feel free to disagree in the comments and put your own recommendations in. I'm all for that kind, good-hearted nature. So I'll stop rambling on and get on with the list as we count down the top 10, I say it's my top 10, rock and metal albums of 2018. Let's go. Number 10, Skeleton Witch, Devouring Radiant Life. Now I've been in a bit of a phase this year where I've been listening to a lot of heavier stuff in terms of death metal, from, you know, just the stuff like Thy Art Is Murder and stuff like that. And the thing with this album in particular, it mixes all that with some nice black metal vocals, as well as putting all the experimental stuff in the guitar riffs and stuff there. So there's something for everybody on this album, I think. And you know, if you want to go hard or go home, this is the album that will take you through that greater heights of what you essentially want to put yourself into whenever you've got that sort of listening mood. For me, personally, I have different moods when it comes to listening to music, but this is definitely one where I want something to perk me up, and this has definitely got that sort of vibe going with it, so yeah. Number 9, Berrak Tomorrow, Black Flame. Now, Berrak Tomorrow have been a band throughout the years that they've quickly rose in the metal scene amongst bands like Parkway Drive, and they're slowly creeping up to become like the next big thing. Especially with this album, because this album, whilst a lot of people would say that the mix on this album is quite muddy and stuff, you can't really ignore the sheer quality of the way the songs are structured. It's something which you get, which is your own typical metalcore sort of album, but it's mixed in with a sheer variety of intense harmonized vocals, as well as screaming vocals and clean vocals. And I think the cleaning vocals, they clean up the whole songs. All that of which makes this album what it is. It's polishing itself up from their previous album, Earthbound, and there's some really intense songs on this, like More Than Mortal. You know, you've got that sort of fist raising going on in it, and you've got the incredible vocal action from Danny when he does songs like Overcast, and even an anthem-like song like Black Flame. And even starting out the album quite strong with No Less Violence, so I can't really fault this album for just being that sort of solid record. So that's why I rank it at number 9. Number 8, and this is going to be the most controversial one because it has nothing to do with the rest of the stuff that's going to be on this list. Panic at the Disco, Pray for the Wicked. Now, I don't know why, but Panic at the Disco has always had a sort of soft spot in my heart. You know, when it comes to them and a band like Fall Out Boy, they started out this sort of punk rock vibe, and then they went quite poppy. But I think in Panic at the Disco's case, it really works well for them, especially with the strength of Brendan Urie's vocals, as well as the sort of experimentation they put into the instrumentals, which isn't just rock, but it's everything from jazz to pop to, you know, blues, everything that you can think of. And, you know, it's no different on this album. And you can call it an energy album if you want. I mean, the explicit rated content is there for a reason. But as soon as you go into this album, it just sets you off with a good start, and I think the rest of the album compensates for it in more than one way. And I think with their Death of a Bachelor album, with the way that went, this album has just really kept their foot on the accelerator for the most part. Number 7, Ice Nine Kills The Silver Screen. This is a bit of a peculiar one to put on this list, mainly because it's nothing, well, it's sort of to do with the instrumentals themselves. They really make up for the mood that this album is going for. But it's not just alternative in the way it's made, it's alternative in the way it's written in terms of lyrics and theme and stuff as well. When you've got songs that emulate things like Friday the 13th and even probably the best Christmas song that has ever come to being in our present lifetime, I don't think I can really fault it, and I've had a lot of fun with this album in the later part of this year, so I can really give it immense points for that. Number 6, Soulfly Ritual. Now, I admit I've never been a massive fan of Soulfly, but there's something about this album in particular that when you've got 7 gears in a car and you always want to stick onto gear 7, you never want to take it off that gear. You want to kind of speed and go onto the hard shoulder and possibly hit a tree whilst you're at it. And from this album, from start to finish, displays exactly that, just pure intensity from the get-go. So, but despite what I said about Soulfly, Max Cavalera, I really love him as a harsh vocalist, and he compensates this band really well, and I think they've really hit their mark with this album. So, props to Soulfly for this album. Number 5, Architects, Holy Hell. Now, a lot of people have said this would be album of the year. Personally, for me, I think it's an amazing album. Like, all the albums on this list are amazing to me. But in case of Architects Holy Hell, it's, you know, an emotional wild ride, and the electronics in the album really compensate the guitar and the drums and bass really well. It's really hard to make out in this album what the highest point of it is, because you've got those technical riffs there, you've got the electronics, and then you've got Sam Carter's immense vocals that even I'm trying to practice now at the moment. I'm just about getting it. I will be there probably now in a minute, maybe in Welsh and all, but I think in terms of this, there's really not a low point on this album that I can list where the performance isn't lacking. Just from the get-go, where you've got Death Is Not Defeat, just kicks you into the overall style of the album, and you've got your singles, which were some of the best singles they could have picked, especially Modern Misery, and then you've got ones off the back of that, like Holy Hell, the title track, which is one of my favourite title tracks that I've listened to in a long time, and then possibly my favourite on this album, which is Mortal After All, which essentially just has everything that I was asking for in this album. It's got the awesome intro, and it's got the intense vocals, as I've mentioned before, and then you've got something like The Seventh Circle, which is just 2 minutes of just pure intensity from start to finish, and it really takes you back to those days of like Hollow Crown and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then something emotional at the end with A Wasted Hymn, where it just takes all those emotions from, you know, the hardships this band has faced since Tom's death, and they just put it all into this album. So, you know, like the band has said, they still feel Tom there, and it really highlights that in this album. Number 4, Bleed From Within Era. Now, I said right at the start of the year that this was an absolute masterpiece. I think when Ali Richardson and the rest of Sylosis took their hiatus, you know, Josh has gone to Architects, which I wish he would, you know, he'd do a lot more through the coming years with the band. And Ali Richardson himself, he's an amazing technical drummer, and he showcases that immensely on this album. Even Scott Kennedy, he's greatly improved his vocals within 4 years, and I don't think there's ever a dull moment in this album where the riffs are still feeling fresh, they're still feeling like something that I wouldn't say is impossible to play, but, you know, you'd have a hard time being that creative, I guess. I don't know what kind of person you are. You know, whether you want to listen to a gym song like Crown of Misery, don't mistake that with Opeth. or something as groovy as Afterlife or even Alive. It's really got everything for you there. So if you want something that, you know, is on the lines of metalcore and that melodic death metal feel, then this album is the one for you. Number 3, Between the Buried and Me, Automata 1 and 2. Now for me, this is just progressiveness in its finest, and they've showcased it right here with, you know, just the light feel as well as mixing in with all the sorts of instrumentals that they have implemented into this 1 or 2 albums. I like the sorts of albums that give you that hard-hitting experience and then just they take it down a notch just to give you a bit of a rest. And then they throw you back up again. You get my point. The point being is I like this album, and that should be enough for anybody. Number 2, Ghost, Prequel. Ghost in this album have just taken things up a notch. I think they've made things so classic rocky and something that everybody can just jam to and feel very spiritual about. I think, you know, we're all ghosts in our own mind. We've got souls, and Ghost very well resonates with that. But in all seriousness, I think they've really outdone themselves this time. I've listened to them for quite a few years, even saw them at Sonosphere in 2014. And despite the fact that it wasn't dark and they're one of those bands that perform better in the dark, All the Fog, I think, made up for it very well. You know, you got the singles like Rats and Dance Macabre by Sombrero. You can't go wrong with what they've displayed here, which is why I give them some very well thumbs up. So I'll go through a few honorable mentions before I go to number 1, as I just want to show I like these albums. So we got Shapes Greater Than. You know, this is one of those albums I just have fun with. It's got some really just funky songs that you'd have in the hard rock region of things. Judas Priest, Firepower. Yeah, they're absolutely incredible in their own right, being around for donkey's years. I just think I wanted to put something fresh on this list. Shut up. I just wanted to put something fresh on this list and rate things by, you know, their merit at this current time. And not to say they've done absolutely wrong. They haven't. They've done quite the opposite. I mean, it's number 12, to say the least. But saying that, this is probably one of the best albums they've released in years since Painkiller. I mean, personally, my favorite album of all time by them would be, I don't know, Ministry, America KKK Can't. So, sorry, I wanted to be politically correct because it is 2018, no, 2019 now, and I wanted to, like, make people happy, you know, because there is a way to make everybody happy on this earth, and you can't give up trying not to do that. So, you know, no, okay. If you want something that just throws everything into it, all those re-recordings of Charlie Chaplin or anything like that, just go listen to this album. It is really good, and it feels like one of those political albums, you know. If anything has America in it, you know it's going to be political. A Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant. This was very close to making the list. It is one of the most atmospheric things I've listened to, especially after their long-awaited return from the early 2000s, and they've always had that sort of alternative vibe, and that's why, you know, I can't really pass on this one. So with all that said, what could possibly beat what we just talked about? Number 1, Rivers of Nihil, Where Owls Know My Name. I don't really know where to begin with this album. It's one of those ones that has everything just thrown into the mix. You've got a saxophone solo, that's one of the things you can't pass. And then you've got just insane sorts of, you know, atmospheric vibes. You've got overly technical riffs that don't just sound like very alternative. You have overly technical riffs that don't just sound different, but they sound well within their own right to call it their own. You know, there's not really much you can compare this band to, especially with what they've displayed here. A Home just has one of the most individual sorts of ways to display a song, and then you go into a lot of emotional trances and just insane death metal feelings, if you will. And I was really wondering throughout the year what could top this, and I still just held this at number 1 for I don't know how long, well, since the album came out. Before that, it was Bleed From Within Era, then Ghost came out, and, you know, it just really hits that nail on the head, you know? So I really, really enjoy what I've talked about today. So, With all that said and done, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit that notification button. All the other stuff that, you know, 1,000 other YouTubers say, but I think I say a lot different, so I'm well worth paying attention to for that reason. So, yeah, be sure to support me and everything else. The links are in the description for all social media, and be sure to be one with the craze. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, within the next few coming years, lights out.